Welcome back. You're watching News Center. Thank you for staying with us. We continue with our conversation, all to do with malaria. Just yesterday, the world celebrated World Malaria Day, and we're taking a stock update in terms of where we are so far in the fight against malaria, and equally breaking it down in order to understand how it's transmitted, who are the high-risk individuals in society, and equally the high-risk areas, what to do in order to prevent when they say prevention is better than cure. I'm having this conversation with Dr. Hilary Tarus. He's from Karen Hospital, just to give us medical officer's point of view in terms of fighting the scourge of malaria. Of course, a lot has been done, but a lot more still needs to be done, not just by government, not just by non-government organizations, but as individuals, members of the society, in order to protect yourself and your loved ones against malaria. So, Dr. we continue with the conversation, and right before the break, I had hinted about treating the symptoms, not the disease. Because at times, you might find yourself, due to a busy schedule and whatnot, you have a headache, you have a fever, some of the symptoms that come with malaria, and you decide, since I have a headache, let me go for a painkiller. Since I have a fever, let me go for something that will alleviate this fever so I can get back to my busy schedule. Does this make an already bad situation worse medically?
Thank you very much, Jesse. The first step of treating any illness is diagnosing it, is getting a proper diagnosis for what's behind the illness. If you don't have the diagnosis, then you're building a castle on sand, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with that particular case, so you have malaria, you have a headache, you take Panadol. It will relieve the headache, but the malaria parasite is still in your system, still replicating, posing dangers to all those other organs that we've talked about. So, of course, it's not always wise to rush to the doctor at the slight of any illness or whatever. But I think the most important thing is to, first of all, educate yourself, know the symptoms of malaria, know what to look out for, and also know when to go to see the doctor. Because even when Panadol, it's not a brand deal or anything. When they have the advertisements, what do they say at the end?
Seek medical attention.
If symptoms
persist.
Yeah.
I get you. Yeah. Is there...
So at the end, you need to see a doctor, and not the doctors who have their placards on the electricity poles, like an actual
I
doctor.
get you, medical doctor. Okay, not a traditional one.
Sure.
Is there an aspect of drug resistance? Let's say I didn't go for the Panadol. I went for the quinines and whatnot. But what I had is complicated. It's not uncomplicated. So the more I take, because I've had this with antibiotics, if you abuse them, then your body sort of becomes resistant. So does it apply with medication when it comes to malaria?
Rightfully so.
Oh.
Let me say this. Any infectious disease that attacks a human being that has been a scourge or has exploded into a pandemic is basically a microorganism that is so determinant to survive at all costs. So with the Plasmodium, the falciparum especially, has shown us that it's resistant to the quinolones. But there's the next step of medications. There are tesunates that can destroy the falciparum. That is why I'm saying when you have signs and symptoms of malaria that we've mentioned, you need to go to the hospital. They'll do what is called a blood smear. In the blood smear, they'll be able to identify what exactly is causing your malaria. Is it the falciparum? Is it the ovale? Then from then, your medical profession, your doctor, can choose the proper therapy for you.
And let me ask this out of curiosity. If you have underlying conditions, because you mentioned it a little bit earlier, case in point, diabetes, you happen to contract malaria. How complicated is it treating someone with other underlying conditions? Does it inform the type of medication one should use, how long they'll be medicated for? Will they be under
Well,
observation?
not as such.
Okay.
The only special accommodations is the pregnant women that we'd already mentioned.
Yeah.
As long as the other condition is well managed and well informed. Like, for example, you have diabetes, you're unable to control your blood sugar. As your doctor, of course, in the setting of infection, your blood sugar levels are likely to spike. But as long as I've addressed that and I'm giving you the Coartem or the test unit, then there should be no problem. You should make a quick recovery. The most important thing, is it complicated? Is it uncomplicated? Are you pregnant or are you not pregnant? Okay. How old are you?
Those are the factors you first look at as you approach the treatment. Let's talk about the social factors as we finalize, because there's a social aspect of malaria when we talk about some of the health inequalities that are hampering efforts to reduce malaria. Talk of insufficient quality healthcare, insufficient healthcare as well, not just in terms of quality. What are some of these issues, social issues, that might hamper the fight against malaria as we finalize?
Well, just apart from the geographic location in where you find yourself in, which is something most of the time you cannot control, how well you maintain your environment. Are there long bushes? Are there long grasses where you live? Are there stagnant ponds? So you find in places where the environment is better maintained, cases of malaria are likely not to. They're not likely to be there. Then number two is access to a healthcare provider, or just access to this information that we are spewing right now. Yeah. You to understand that when I have a headache, I'm having joint pains, I've seen a lot of mosquitoes in my house, I might have malaria, I should go see a doctor. That knowledge is not available to all the Kenyans. Okay. And even so, for those who want to go and see a doctor, the malaria test kit, which is, but to test malaria, you just need a microscope and a glass. That's it. But even that, and having an expert who can look into your blood and identify the falciparum, is not available to everybody. You know, they say privilege is invisible to those who have it. So the ability to just go to Karen Hospital and meet Dr. Tarus, does a malaria test on you and gives you the medication and a lollipop at the end of the visit is not available for all Kenyans.
Definitely, and that's a challenge as we go forward. But in terms of state actors, non-state actors, are we doing enough? Because I know you come from the medical field, but being a stakeholder in this fight against malaria, if I can call you that, are the other actors doing enough in terms of, if it's information, dissemination of information to the public, whatnot? Because there's a time where we were told sleeping under a treated mosquito net is the best way. But these days, there's not so much emphasis on treating mosquito nets. Boro kuna mosquito net, uko sawa, you know?
The answer is no. The answer is no, we're not doing enough. Not just as a country, but also as a continent, because malaria is one of the leading killers as far as infectious diseases can speak. I mean, let me give you an example, yes? In 2020, we had COVID, and the government poured all its resources into trying to manage and mitigate COVID, rightfully so. And right now, we're able to almost completely eradicate it. In a country like Sierra Leone, back in 2020, around 70 people died due to the COVID pandemic. 7,000 people had died the same year because of malaria. So you see, if we could have the same effort that we did with COVID, directed towards the fight of malaria, in 5 years down the line, we might be sitting here talking about a different illness.
Well, we definitely need more concerted effort, a concerted approach equally in order to eradicate this vice. Daktari, asante sana for your time. I'm not hoping I get sick, but in case I get sick, I know where to look for you.
Yes,
asante sana. Dr. Hilary Tarus from Current Hospital, a medical officer, just helping us disseminate the necessary details around malaria in terms of signs and symptoms, those who are at higher risk, the high-risk areas, what to do to prevent, and equally what to do when it comes to cure. Thank you so much for your input. Well, allow us to shift focus right now to other stories making headlines. And as you well know, the UDA party, the ruling party, is holding its grassroots elections in very